Okay, I'm Jason Doucette with Xona Games, and we're an indie-based studio from Yarmouth, Nova Scotia in Canada. Okay, we do retro-based games. We like to call them retro re-envisioned or intense retro. So we basically take the concepts of yesteryear, the retro type style of games where people remember playing back in the past, but also bring them into today's type of game where the intensity is increased and the like you have instant gratification essentially. So that's basically it. The history of Xona Games, we essentially have been making games since we've been 7 years old. So we have a big passion about this. We've been doing it ourselves for a long time. We have a passion in programming and design. And we started doing this professionally about 3 years ago with the Microsoft Dream Build Play contest. That's sort of what allowed us to take the risk, the jump to test to see whether this would work or not. And then once we did that, it just we kept going because the passion has always been there. So here we are, and we're still trucking through. Okay, the team is just the two of us. It's two twin brothers. I'm Jason Doucette, my brother is Matthew Doucette. I'm the lead programmer, Matthew is the game producer. Essentially, we pretty much handle we handle all the business functions and the development and design. We're brothers and we're twin brothers, so we both seem to share the same direction that we want to take the company in and what we want to do for games. But at the same time, we're bound to argue and stuff like that, but that's fine because we're essentially trying to find our way. And so sometimes the best way to learn is like by making mistakes and seeing what happens. So we're sort of bumping around, learning as we go, and hopefully we'll keep taking steps. One of our problems with intense retro is that we're sort of blocking out a lot of the casual gamers because so far what we've done is bullet hell shoot 'em ups. And it's not our intention to only appeal to a small segment of the market. That's not what we want to do. We just know that we can make really good games, the ones that we understand very well. And so we want to make more casualized games and actually make them more social, get online multiplayer and get friends. Not just, all our games are 4-player co-op in the same room, but we realize not everybody's always in the same room. Your friends aren't always visiting, so we want to sort of bridge that gap and still do the same type of games that we understand and love, that we want to play, that are retro-based, but bring them even further into today's type of style of game where it's more social. And I mean that's sort of for our next project. That's where we're headed. We already sort of have a design based all around that. It's kind of bad that what we've done so far is shoot 'em ups because that's not the only type of game that we want to do. It just sort of has happened that that's what we've done. There's all kinds of old school games that we want to bring. It's sort of like the games that we played when we were 7 or 8 and we wanted to program, and some of them we did. Just they couldn't really be games because we didn't have the tools and the fast enough computers to be able to do it. And now we're sort of reliving those, and we're actually producing. So there's a bunch of games like that, like racing games, beat-em-up games, adventure games, all kinds of things that we want to do. The shoot-em-up is just probably my favorite genre. That's the reason why we've tackled that. It's unfortunate that some people today just don't understand shooters, and so we're having a little bit of growing pains as a result of that. But so far what we've done is focus, number one, on gameplay. And I think that's important because we see a lot of indie games come out where I always see them and it's like, man, just give me a couple of days with the source code and I'll fix the gameplay, because that's the first thing that I notice. And no matter how pretty it is, if you don't have fun actually playing it, it's not going to hit. So we know that we've mastered that, but the problem is everything else. So for our next game, we wanted to actually have the #1 priority be the social aspect. We'll still have gameplay as the #2 priority. And it probably will be some sort of shooter, maybe not a space shooter, but maybe like a run and gun type of. It might have that in it. It's not that, but it's not going to be the focus of the game. That's sort of, I can go 2 different ways, whether we're talking about the 3D, like first-person shooters, or the old school 2D shooters. For the old school 2D shooters, what has happened is that people always think it's the same thing. Oh, you just dodge bullets and you shoot. So you always have to throw something new in there to make your game seem innovative. And what has happened is that it's gone more and more crazy, and that's where the bullet hell and the maniac shooter concept to come from. The problem with that is that, yeah, it attracts the people that are in the shoot 'em up crowd to test the new game. So it's something new, but it scares completely everyone away that isn't in the shoot 'em up. That's why the shoot 'em ups went from the early 90s being the #1 genre. Now people don't even hear about them. People don't even want to try them, and it's too bad because they're really fun games. You can have just a burst of gameplay for 10 minutes if that's what you have, and amazing action, and you jump out, and they're perfect for that. So one of the problems is by making things too intense, you're actually scaring people away. And what we're going to try and do is bring back the retro from yesteryear, still maintain the intensity of what people demand today, but do it in a way that doesn't scare everybody from trying the game. So that's quite a challenge for 2D shoot 'em ups. In terms of first-person shooters, well, in Canada, the game industry has really taken off, but we're way on the East Coast, in Nova Scotia, and the government has really recognized that this is an amazing industry, and they're offering amazing tax credits for companies to come in, and so they're actually here at GDC showcasing this, saying that this is an amazing place to come, and companies are actually moving to Nova Scotia to take advantage of this. And so there's a growing industry in Nova Scotia. And it's kind of funny coming to GDC because it's such a small place that, not GDC but Nova Scotia is, that you hear other people, it's like, oh, I wish like we had an industry, like, and because where I grew up is a town of less than 10,000 people in a fishing community. The industry is zero. There's like me and my twin brother is the industry. So the closest city is Halifax, about 3 hours away, and it's sort of mostly centered around that. But at least that's accessible. It's not quite in the same town, but at least I'm sort of next door in some sense. I kind of wish I was a little bit closer because the distance still matters. It's not like you just make a 3.5-hour drive on a whim. But so we're still sort of isolated, but we're not as isolated as we once were. Future of video games. I mean, I guess you say the obvious, like things are going more social and stuff like that. I guess I mean, things always have to change because it's human nature just to get bored with how things are in the same manner. That's just kind of like what I said with the shoot 'em up genre. Things have to change. You have to add some new gimmick or something in, and it's almost to the point where I'll see some company reinvent a past game that was amazing, and then they add new mechanics and they take old mechanics out, and it ends up ruining the game, at least for me, and I see for other people as well. And it's like, oh, why did they do that? But then you realize, like, you can't, even speaking with them, it's like you can't just do the same thing over and over again. You have to change. So at some point, I mean, the social nature of video games has always been there. I mean, ever since I'm going to go back to like the third generation, like of the original Nintendo, where games had 2 players. And I mean, that came with 2 controllers. Systems today that you buy don't even come with 2 controllers. Where your friend was supposed to be sitting next to you on the couch and playing this game. That's sort of what the games that we're making as well right now. Like all of them are 4-player co-op, so you can grab 4 controllers and play. So I think the social nature will always be there. Just now with the connectivity of the internet, even though it's sort of, it makes it less. You don't have to go to your friend's house to sit down on the couch because you can just connect over the internet. So it's weird, that's sort of lost, but at least you are doing that. You can see the scores and you can, the leaderboards and stuff like that. So that will always continue. But from there, it's just so hard. It's so hard to say. Like, it's so hard to know or to guess. I mean, I guess if I could, I'd be working on something that blow everything away. But I do know that gamers today have a lot more choice of content. So you sort of need something that gives you instant gratification, and you also need something that gives you recognition and reward for your efforts in the game. Because there's other games that do that. So you kind of want someone to say, "Yeah, I see what you did, and here's your your star for doing it." Indie games are interesting because they're always small companies that are willing to take risks. It's just like I mean, I don't really consider myself taking a huge risk, but people will look from like other companies will look and say, yeah, you guys are, and most indie guys are, and some people have even crazy concepts. They have no idea if it's going to work or not. I mean, there's ways to find out through prototyping and throwing things out in the market before it's finished to see how the audience reacts. But I don't think it's ever going to change that indie games are always going to kind of be pushing into. It's almost like the fact that some of them don't have the experience to know not to be stupid, so they try things, and all of a sudden some of them work because the big companies don't want to change a formula that's already working, so they're fearful of actually expanding their borders, and indie games are always going to be pushing that. So I love this resurgence of indie. Everything's indie now, and it's like, I think it's amazing. So it's hard to say where the indie guys are going to take it. It's just, but it'll be nice to see.